we got to get into this. This is nuts. This is nuts. So here it says, Caitlin Clark snub from top 10 women athlete list sparks heated debate. Caitlin Clark was not included in the top women's athletes list of 2025, which is getting mixed reactions. Y'all know I think she should be on it. There's no question that Indiana Fever star guard Caitlin Clark is the most popular women's basketball player in the world, and there's a case to be made that Clark is also the most popular women's athlete in the world, regardless of sport.
That frustration you just heard, that's the reaction to one of the most baffling sports media decisions of 2025. USA Today published their top 10 women's athletes list for the year, and somehow, the most recognizable face in women's basketball didn't make the cut. Not even honorable mention, but here's what makes this particularly wild. The player who did make number 3 on that list didn't even make first team all WNBA. So we need to break down what actually here, because this isn't just about one list. This is about a pattern of how Caitlin Clark gets covered, even after she spent the first week of 2025 going viral for completely different reasons.
Let's start with the post by Caitlin Clark, okay? She posted this up on Instagram about 2025, okay? This is about 2025. She put up a bunch of things here. We're going to get into it. Boom. She put up these photos. Let's take a look here. Let's take a look. Let's just back all the way back so we can see them all. Okay, boom. Okay, we got her. Oh, man, we got the op. How did she make the cut? Caitlin, you got to wake up. Wake up. Why is Stephanie White in it?
January 2nd, 2025. Caitlin drops her year in review post on Instagram, and it immediately starts racking up millions of impressions, photos with Wembanyama at a Spurs game, the Iowa reunion with Kate Martin and Gabby Marshall, treatment sessions in hyperbaric chambers, the Annika golf event where she got to play with one of her idols, and right there in the carousel, her coach Stephanie White makes an appearance. That's significant because if you've been following the Fever drama this offseason, you know that relationship has been under a microscope. The fact that Stephanie made the cut for Caitlin's personal highlight reel tells you something about where things actually stand, despite all the speculation about tension between them. But the post also revealed something else. Multiple photos show Caitlin in various stages of injury recovery. The hyperbaric chamber shots, the treatment table images. This wasn't just a fun year in review post. This was documentation of a season that ended way too early.
This is her getting treatment. Now, there was a lot of treatment things going on, man. We saw the thing that Lexi Hall, or was it Lexi? Yeah, I think it was Lexi that posted of her in the hyperbaric chamber trying to recover. So yeah, this post is everywhere. Her and Connor. Oh, she got a picture with Wemby. Wemby's so damn tall, his name in the jersey she's holding couldn't make the cut. That's how damn tall he is. That's crazy. Hey, Wemby, hey, them two baby goats right there. Two baby goats. Okay.
13 games. That's how many times Caitlin Clark suited up for the Indiana Fever in 2025 before her body said enough. Lower body injuries kept her sidelined for the team's entire playoff run. And here's the painful irony. After dragging the Fever to relevance in 2024, playing through constant physical punishment, dealing with flagrant fouls that often went uncalled, she finally gets a legitimate supporting cast in year 2, and her body breaks down before she can capitalize on it. The 2024 version of Caitlin Clark played all 82 games, set the rookie assist record, led the Fever to their first playoff appearance in years, and fundamentally changed the economics of women's basketball. The 2025 version watched from the bench in street clothes while her teammates fought through the postseason without her. That contrast matters when we're talking about year-end recognition.
Here it says, fans at odds over Caitlin Clark's women's list exclusion. On December 30th, USA Today's Sydney Henderson published a list that ranked the top 10 women's athletes in 2025. Asia Wilson came in at number 1, and Paige Beckers earned the number 3 spot? How? Hold up. How was Paige even above a Kelsey Mitchell? Kelsey Mitchell was better than Paige last year, and they damn near went to the finals. This is what I'm saying, man. Y'all be pushing these agendas, bro. Stop it, man. Stop it. Paige Becker should not have been number 3. Nasty work.
So, let's get into this list, because the details matter here. USA Today's Sydney Henderson published the rankings on December 30th. Al Wilson at number 1. That's defensible. She won her 3rd MVP, led the Aces to another championship, and continued to be the most dominant two-way player in the league. No argument there. Mikaela Shiffrin at number 2. Olympic skier, multiple medals, incredible season. Fine, but number 3 is where this gets interesting. Paige Bueckers, the UConn guard who just finished her college season. Now, Paige had an excellent year. She put up impressive numbers, won awards, and she's absolutely going to be a star in the WNBA. But let's look at what she actually accomplished compared to what Caitlin did in her rookie season, since that seems to be the comparison everyone's making. Paige scored fewer points per game than rookie Caitlin, fewer assists, fewer rebounds, didn't lead her team to a conference championship, didn't break any all-time NCAA records, didn't sell out arenas across the country, and most importantly, she didn't make first-team All-Big East, let alone first-team All-WNBA. So how does she land at number 3 on a list of the top women's athletes of...
Minnesota Lynx star Napheesa Collier secured the number 5 ranking. I gotta see this list. Clark was nowhere to be found, and this upset many of her fans. Sorry, do not know of any of them. Where's Caitlin Clark? You know, the only one with a worldwide following. Okay. A'ja Wilson, Mikaela Shiffrin, Paige Beckers. Man, come on, bro. Y'all playing games. Who is this? Arena what The Rock say? It doesn't matter what your name is. That's what The Rock used to say. What are we talking about? How is Caitlin Clark not on this list? Y'all got Paige Beckers at number 3? Paige Beckers wasn't even a top 5, wasn't top 5 in the WNBA last year. She didn't make first team all W, did she? Man, hold on. See, man, hold on, man. Y'all tripping, man. Paige Beckers didn't make first team all WNBA. How is she number?
The 5th spot went to Napheesa Collier. Minnesota Lynx forward, phenomenal player, had a great season. Absolutely deserves recognition. But again, we're looking at a list that found room for 5 women's basketball players, and somehow couldn't find space for the one who changed the entire financial landscape of the sport. Because let's be clear about what Caitlin Clark actually did for women's basketball. The Fever went from playing in half-empty arenas to selling out every single game, home and away. The WNBA's new media rights deal, worth $2.2 billion over 11 years, happened in large part because networks saw what Caitlin did to ratings, and games featuring the Fever averaged over 1 million viewers. Some playoff games hit 3 million. Those are numbers the league hadn't seen in decades, if ever. And yes, she only played 13 games in 2025 before injuries shut her down. But the question we need to ask is this: does 13 games of Caitlin Clark have more impact on women's basketball than a full season of almost anyone else? Because the attendance numbers suggest the answer might be yes. Even in those 13 games, Fever tickets were still the hottest commodity in the WNBA.
We got some stuff. I think this was this All-Star weekend or something? I think this might have been All-Star or something. I'm not sure. Okay, we got pictures here. We got pictures with Kate Money Martin. Okay, we got the Iowa reunion up here up top. The Iowa reunion. We got Gabby in there. Kate Money Martin in there. Gabby right here. This was fire. They got Jade in this in the bottom left. Okay, yeah. Oh, the Clarks, legendary up top. Y'all too. Y'all created a legend. Y'all created a legend.
Here's what makes the Paige Bueckers placement particularly revealing. The narrative around Paige all season was that she's having a Caitlin Clark type year. Media members kept making that comparison. The implication being that Paige was doing for UConn in 2025 what Caitlin did for Iowa in 20. And look, Paige is an incredible talent. She's going to be the #1 pick in the next WNBA draft. She's going to have a long and successful professional career. But the comparison doesn't actually hold up under scrutiny. Caitlin's final college season saw her break Pete Maravich's all-time NCAA scoring record. lead Iowa to the national championship game for the second consecutive year, and generate so much interest that her games were regularly drawing bigger audiences than men's college basketball. Paige had a great season, but UConn didn't make the Final Four. She didn't break any major records. And while UConn games drew well, they weren't pulling the kind of numbers that Caitlin's Iowa games consistently delivered. So why does Paige make the list at number 3 while Caitlin doesn't appear at all? The answer might tell us something about how women's basketball coverage works.
I'm just saying, bro. I'm just saying. What is this? Okay, we got more photos. Lexi. All right, man. So this stuff is everywhere, man. This is everywhere. This is a viral post. All right, everybody that was saying it's beef with Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell she made the cut. Kelsey Mitchell made the cut, y'all. Everybody can calm down. Everybody can calm down. Okay? Okay? Got an AB in here. Okay. On the plane. I think that's the coach's kid that she always be holding. Okay. Okay, that's lit. That's lit. Then we got the Annika. When she took over the Annika golfing, that was super, super lit. Caitlin Clark going viral once again. Now we got to get into this.
There's a tension in women's basketball media that doesn't get talked about enough. On one hand, you have the traditional beat writers and analysts who covered the sport before it became mainstream. These are people who genuinely love the game, who stuck with it through years of minimal coverage and tiny audiences. They have deep knowledge and real credibility. On the other hand, you have the reality that Caitlin Clark brought millions of new fans to women's basketball. Fans who didn't know who Aja Wilson was before fans who couldn't name a single WNBA team. Fans who are now buying jerseys, watching games, and actually caring about the league. And some of the traditional media members seem almost resentful of that. Not all of them, obviously. But there's definitely a segment that views the new Caitlin-driven audience as somehow less legitimate, as if caring about women's basketball because you fell in love with watching Caitlin Clark play makes you a lesser fan than someone who's been following the league since the 90s. That tension shows up in weird ways, like a year-end list that includes Paige Beekers at number 3, but can't find room for the player who actually changed the economics of the professional league.
3 on this list. How is she number 3 on this list? Like, this don't even make sense. This don't even make sense, bro. Like, y'all are crazy. Y'all are crazy, man. The push is crazy, man. This is wild work. Somebody said the Caitlin Clark disrespect is insane. Watch how she win MVP next year. I agree. She definitely win an MVP next year, man. These people are bugged out. They are tripping. Get down in the comments. Let me know what y'all think, man. Should Caitlin Clark have been on this list? Should Paige Beckers have been number 3? I don't know, man. I don't know about that. Get down in the comments. Let me know what y'all think, man.
Now, let's address the obvious counter-argument. Caitlin only played 13 games in 2025. She missed the entire playoff run. She didn't win any awards. She didn't lead her team to a championship. By traditional metrics, it wasn't a successful season. And if we're purely talking about on-court accomplishments in the calendar year 2025, there's a legitimate case that she doesn't belong on the list. But here's the thing about these year-end lists. They're not just about stats and wins. They're about impact. They're about who moved the needle, who changed the conversation, who mattered. And even in 13 games, even watching from the bench during the playoffs, Caitlin Clark remained the most talked about player in women's basketball. Her Instagram post from January got more engagement than most WNBA teams get in an entire season. Articles about her injury status generated more clicks than coverage of actual playoff games. That's not a knock on the other players. Aja Wilson is phenomenal. Nafisa Collier is incredible. Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionesco and all the other stars in this league are world-class athletes who deserve recognition. But the reality is that Caitlin operates on a different level of public consciousness, and a list that's trying to capture the most important women's athletes of 2025 probably should acknowledge that. The fact that it doesn't tells you something about who's making these decisions and what they value. And based on the reaction online, it tells you that there's a pretty significant disconnect between what traditional sports media thinks matters and what the actual audience cares about. So here's what's going to happen next. Caitlin's going to come back healthy for the She's going to play with a chip on her shoulder the size of Indiana. And she's going to remind everyone exactly why the Fever sold out every single arena they visited. The injury-plagued 2025 season is going to look like an aberration, not the new normal. And when the 2026 year-end lists come out, it's going to be a lot harder to justify leaving her off. Because the narrative that she's just a college phenomenon who couldn't translate to the pros is already dead. The narrative that other players are more important to the league's success doesn't match the financial reality. And the narrative that 13 games of Caitlin Clark don't matter as much as full seasons from other players is going to look even more ridiculous when she comes back and dominates for a full 82-game schedule. The USA Today list isn't just wrong, it's revealing. It shows you exactly how certain segments of sports media view Caitlin Clark and the audience she brought with her. And honestly, that disconnect is probably going to continue. Because there's a fundamental difference between covering a sport because you love it and covering a sport because one player made it impossible to ignore. Caitlin Clark didn't just make the Indiana Fever relevant. She made the entire WNBA relevant to millions of people who didn't care before. That's not hype. That's not media narrative. That's measurable impact in television ratings, ticket sales, merchandise revenue, and social media engagement. And a year-end list that can't acknowledge that isn't really capturing what actually happened in women's sports. So drop a comment and let me know. Should Caitlin have made this list despite only playing 13 games? Does impact matter more than games played? And where would you rank her compared to Paige Bueckers? Because clearly USA Today has a very different answer than most of the basketball world. And that gap between media perception and fan reality, that's the story that's going to define women's basketball coverage for the next decade. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's keep this conversation going. Because if this list proved anything, it's that we're still figuring out how to cover this sport now that it actually matters to millions of people.